Hazur said, the translation is as follows: said, what advice could Hazur give to the Palestinian as people and authority as well, and how Hazur can see the future of Ahmadiyyas in Palestine in the light of the prophecy of the promised Messiah, which says, God has given me a good tidings concerning the Arabs, and He has asked me specifically to I have to look after them and guide them to the right path, and inshallah I will be among the people who will be granted success.
There is a question which has a political tinge to this question, to it, and the prevailing idea is that Islam is a nation distinct from the rest of the nations of the world. While according to the Holy Quran, Islam is not a nation on geographical basis, on racial basis, but it's a nation built on beliefs which can be shared by all the people alike. So it's not a nation to which you can admit other people across borders. It's a nation which has no borders but the ideological borders, and everybody is free to walk in or walk out. So as such, in political terms, Islam cannot be divided as a nation against others. In religious terms, most certainly it is a nation which is opposed to the non-religious people of the world alike. So that has to be clarified, because on this hinges the understanding of many a prophecy of the Holy Quran and the prophecy of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Hence the so-called confrontations between the geographical world of Islam with the outside geography are ideas which are not contained in the Quran or in the Hadith at all. They in fact are contrary to the larger global concept of Islam. Now when people speak in Arab countries today of confrontation of Islam with the West, what do they mean by with the West? Are there not Muslims among the Western people? If there is a contradiction between Islam of the East and people of the West, then this contradiction will have no support from God, because there will be Muslims, like we have one sitting among us from Germany. She's a highly dedicated young lady from Romania, and she's a Muslim. So when you talk of the Muslims versus the West, where would she belong? And many others like her. Hundreds of, in fact, more than 1,000 Germans, people of German nationality I should say, many thousands of them, belonging to different countries previously but now who have become Germans. Where would be they in that confrontation and division of nations and nationalities? The same applies to America, to all other European countries, etc. And as such, the entire Western might would rise against the might of the Muslim people, and also reject Islam, because Islam would become a mark of national distinction, not a mark of distinction between the holy and unholy, godly and ungodly. It's a very suicidal policy which the Muslims have adopted today, and it must be clearly analyzed and rejected as such after understanding the philosophy of this the separation of Islam with the rest of the world. Now let's turn the focus of our attention to the Jewish question and the Palestinian issue in particular. Now, where would you put the Jews who become Muslims? To which nation will they belong? To the Palestinian people, so-called, or those whom Islam condemns roundly, and there can be no peace between this and that? What about Abdullah bin Salam? Where would you put him? Who was one of the most renowned companions of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also others like him who came from the Jewish background but were completely absorbed and owned by Islam. So you must first of all clearly understand the marks of separation, the boundary lines between the Islamic Ummah and the non-Islamic Ummah. Islamic Ummah has no geographical borders. It penetrates everywhere, into every continent, among every people, whatever the racial belongings be, and owns them. And that is why the borders of Islam are open borders and not shut borders. Please. Once you understand this, then you will understand the meaning of the conquest of the whole world by Islam, how that conquest would take place. Will there be one Ummah of Islam fighting with weapons, with material weapons, those who do not belong to the Ummah of Islam, or it would be a different thing altogether? According to the Quranic concept of ultimate victory of Islam, following is the verdict. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. A strange victory, the strange vision of victory it is, which cannot be shared by any territorial concept. Any concept belonging to land and victory, pertaining to the appropriation of lands. In the political sense, in victory, the victorious armies enter the lands of those whom they have conquered. Right or wrong? Right. Invariably. Whenever there is a territorial victory, political victory, the armies of the victorious march with glory into the lands of those whom they have defeated. But this vision of Muslim Fatah is a completely different vision, exactly the opposite. وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. Army after army of people would enter the world of Islam. Not the armies of Islam entering the world of the non-Muslims. See, who would be victorious then? This is a completely different concept of victory presented by Islam. And this can only be acceptable as sensible if the geographical borders disappear completely and they don't mean anything. Armies of non-Muslims can only enter Islam when they become Muslims. So it is up to them to leave their territories and do hijrah into the world of Islam. And that is a spiritual migration, spiritual hijrah. And that is the meaning of ultimate victory of the faith of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam over all other faiths. Right? Now I'll once again return to the Jewish issue, after this, please. As a result of this, the citizenship of the people who enter Islam does not change. They remain nationals and equal nationals of those countries which they share with other patriots. And there is no difference whatsoever created in the nationality of Africans when they become Muslims, Americans when they become Muslims, Germans when they become Muslims. They remain Germans, Americans and Africans as much as they were before becoming Muslims. But the loyalties, the order of loyalties is definitely changed, but not in a manner that they confront each other. This is a very important thing which you must understand. The order of loyalties changes from ordinary order to the one described by the Holy Quran. It says, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ فَإِذَا تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَالرَّسُولِ رُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. That wherever the Muslims are, to obey politically their own respective governments is incumbent upon them. Ulul Amr, whoever he is, you must continue to follow him. But no Ulul Amr of the world has a right to interfere in your faith. So the line of demarcation of nationalities is clearly laid. No confusion is left. Everyone from among the Germans or other European or Western countries or Eastern countries for that matter, who becomes a Muslim, his nationality does not change as such. His political belonging remains the same. So wherever he is, he must obey the laws of the land. And whoever is Ulil Amr, and whichever Muslim from other countries goes and settles there, the same verse binds him to the law of the land, to the obedience of the law of the land, and he must obey whoever rules, whether it's a democratic rule or whatever rule has been established there. But the rulers of any land have no right to interfere with the religion or any people of the earth. The religion belongs to God. So he will remain their God. Their ruler, political ruler may change from one to the other, and it happens exactly like this today in the world. The Muslims, the Arab Muslims, Palestinian Muslims, the Pakistani Muslims, whatever, wherever they belong to, when they come to England, they follow the law of the land. But if the British government decides that they have no right to say the prayers, they would say no. Do whatever you may do whatever you may. Because in this case we are told, فَإِذَا تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. So in matters of religion, you have no right to interfere. In matters of state, Islam will not interfere. So this is the most wonderful universal teachings of Islam, which can fit everywhere in the political order of the world. Everywhere. Without creating any friction. And this is a principle which has to be accepted by every sensible man in the world. No one with an iota of sense, whether he is atheist or whoever he is, can claim otherwise. In matters of faith, you are free. In matters of politics, we are free. So when we interfere with your domain, you have right to say no. When you interfere with our domain, then of course we have a right to say no. Please. Now let's return to the issue of confrontation between Palestinian Muslims and the Israelites, right? Now, who can stop the Jews of Israel or anywhere else, belonging to anywhere else in the world, from becoming Muslims? Can you? Is it not your fundamental obligation to preach Islam to all the non-Muslims, the Jews being no exception? Is that right or wrong? Right. This is the obligation, this is obligatory on every Muslim to preach Islam to all others who do not belong to Islam. And Jews are not exempted from this. So this is the holy war which you do not take. The real holy war, you should have taken up long before, so that they enter your territory of Islam, not your territory of Palestine. That's the only formula to liberate your territory from them. And you don't understand this. The Holy Quran has made it clear. And the Holy Quran has also made it clear. وَلَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا فِي الزَّبُورِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الذِّكْرِ أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ يَرِثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. Here Muslims, non-Muslims, etc. are not mentioned. What is mentioned is عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. Now, who can prevent the Jews, if they accept Islam, from becoming Ibadullah Salihun? Ibadullah Salihun. Can anybody do that? If they become Ibadullah Salihun, what right has anybody got to eject them from the territory of Palestine? No one has. And how can you win that territory without becoming Ibadullah Salihun? Because the condition laid is that. The condition is not the Arabs will inherit this territory. The Palestinians will inherit this territory. The world of Muslims, including Indonesian, Pakistanis, etc., even they, if they join forces, are not promised by God to inherit this territory. The only people mentioned are Ibadullah Salihin. If you become Ibadu Salihin or Al-Ibadu Salihun, then of course you will win your battle against all who have usurped your rights and become also the territorial masters of this land. If you do not become Ibadullah Salihin, nothing can happen. So instead of following the formula laid down clearly by the Holy Quran, which has no ambiguity about it, you make your own formulas of fighting it out with swords, while the sword you hold is much inferior to the sword they hold. So such policies of confrontation have been proved already to be suicidal. Because every time you took up sword against Israel, they expanded and you squeezed into smaller areas. You were expelled and not they. So if Allah had promised Muslims a victory on national basis, as you understand the concept of Muslim nation, then why has He not kept His word? A strange God that is, who tells you go ahead and fight it out. And when you fight it out, He withdraws His support and lets you vacate more territories to the hands of the Jewish people. I can't understand such a God. There has to be some mistake on your part. And this is the mistake which has been laid clear by the Quran. Make them enter the territories of Islam and welcome them as such. Once they become Muslims, then you have no right to exert your superiority as Palestinian Muslims. Muslims are brothers. They are ikhwan, of equal rights. So this is the best formula, but if not that, at least become righteous Muslims, the righteous servants of Allah, as Ibadu Salihin means. And then leave it to God. if you become righteous, then you are bound to gain victory. Now, if you do not draw these lines which are drawn by Islam, separating the two Muslims from the non-Muslims, then you know what would happen. Under the title of Palestinian, there would be so many who would be drinking, who would be committing all sorts of sins. Among them would be those who do not believe in God, who do not believe in anything. And they are a part of your army, fighting their battle against what? See?
Right.
It's an impossible situation. God is all wise. Don't try to be wiser than God. These are the instructions which you must follow, and the victory will kiss your feet if you understand the meaning of Islamic victory. Please.